Testing insulation resistance is a key part of commissioning and troubleshooting any type of electrical system. Let's go ahead and start off with the fundamentals. Now, you notice on the screen here, IRT, insulation resistance testing. You're going to hear me say that over and over again. Sometimes it'll mean IRT, insulation resistance testing. Other times I'm going to use it in regards to the meter we use to perform the test. That's right, an insulation resistance tester. So what is this all about anyway? Well, we use an IRT meter to measure resistance, that'd be measured in ohms, by applying a constant voltage to a circuit, a conductor, or a piece of equipment that's under test. The analogy here is it's like pressure testing water pipes. We apply a high pressure, in this case a high voltage, and we make sure none of the electrons are popping out and leaking out of the circuit. If we have a low resistance value, that indicates we have damaged insulation or some path for electrons to escape the circuit. Now, you also hear this commonly called measuring because Megger, one of the several manufacturers of these meters, developed the first one back in 1889. You'll also hear the term megaohm meter used pretty much interchangeably for IRT or insulation resistance tester. So what is IRT, insulation resistance testing, used for? Well, one big thing is commissioning, right? We want to make sure that our conductors and equipment have proper insulation before we turn that system on for the first time. And if we look at various standards out there that are applicable to PV systems, IEC 62446, testing insulation resistance is one of the things we're supposed to do when we commission a system. This allows us to find faults that may exist before we turn it on and use the power source to find the fault. And we can also establish baseline values for that insulation so that we can see that if it degrades over time, we know that something's happening. This also might be performed as part of preventive maintenance, a regular testing regime that we do as part of maintaining the system. This would be based on standards, contracts, and equipment manuals. It's a little invasive of a procedure, and there's other ways to verify that things are working okay, so we don't see this quite as often in PV systems, but it can allow us to identify conductor insulation degradation and verify the integrity of equipment such as busing insulation and switchgear and switchboards, transformer insulation, breakers, and other gear associated with our system. The biggest thing we're going to use it for is corrective maintenance, troubleshooting when we have ground faults and we need to track those down. The image on the slide here shows a conductor being tested for insulation resistance. In this case, it has 11 gigaohms of resistance, and that actually is the maximum that this particular meter can read to, so we've pegged that meter. You can also see the test voltage that's being applied here, 1048 volts in the case of this particular test.